Good morning to all of you. My name is Solange Loyer. It's a French name. I don't speak French. I'm from Universidad Católica de la Santísima Concepción. That's a very long name. We are in Chile. You may not know our flag, but I'm sure you know our wine, which is quite good. There it comes. And basically what I'm going to do to help understand is just going to make it easier with the name of our university and just call it UCSC. I'm a civil engineer, and I led the process within my department. And basically, we've been carrying this on for some years, but CDIO has been something that we approached just recently. Who are we and where are we? Well, that's Chile. You can see us on the map. We are the second largest city in Chile. We're about 500 kilometers from Santiago. And our university, it's a Catholic university, but it's not the old kind of Catholic university. I mean, the ethic part is still very important, like it should in any university. But I want you to understand it's a very normal, competitive university. We are 30 years old as an independent university. We used to belong to the Pontificia Universidad Católica, which is a very big university in Chile. And our School of Engineering is it's 20 years old. So, also, it doesn't work that fast. You may be familiar with our 8.8 earthquake. Yes, it was quite near where we live in Concepcion. In fact, I want to show you some pictures because as a civil engineer, this is part of what we do. I mean, this would be the result of an implementation after design. This is called Alto Rio. Unfortunately, 6 people died in this building. And here you have another example. That's Torre O'Higgins. Nobody died here because it was a business building. It was brand new, actually. But these are all engineering mistakes that cause these problems. And this last picture, you recognize Torre O'Higgins. And the fun fact about this picture is that I was there during the earthquake. Another fun fact is that I was just on the other side of the building is Alto Rio, and my husband actually saw it tumble down during the earthquake. I'm sorry. Besides getting your attention, because I'm sure you're pretty tired at this time, I just want us to keep it real because this is my field, civil engineering. I'm sure you're from other fields, but this is what we're doing. I mean, this is actually the result of what we expect our students not to do or improve once they're out in the market. Today, basically, I'm just going to tell you about the process. There's so much things I could tell you. I'm just going to focus on some aspects of the process and the general overview of it, and I'm going to stop in some learning experiences for us and some results. What did we do? Nothing bad. We did not do a pilot project. I mean, we didn't take one course and put CDIO in it. What we did is we took all 5 of our, I don't know, should I point what direction? We took all 5 of our engineering programs and we redesigned the curriculum. And our 5 engineering programs, this is something quite interesting. These 3, which are the oldest programs in our School of Engineering, they're 6-year-long programs. And no, does not lead to a master's. We just love being in school a long time. So if you want to get a master's degree, after this you have to go and get a master's. That's, I don't know, a year and a half and 2 extra years. So these are 5-year-long programs, so you would kind of understand why we don't have many undergraduate international students. You know, it's a little bit too long. But if you really look inside these programs, they are really master's programs. We have a final project or thesis, which is actually a master's thesis. So it's still a big issue for us. So when you look at what we did, basically we decided to go all the way up. We designed the path to get to the top and went all the way, and now we are implementing it. How did we work? We have our 5 programs and departments. what we did is we created what we call a main working team, which is with people from each one of these departments. We tried to get somebody from the engineering, from the education school. It did not work. We realized that although they talk about competency-based curriculum and everything, when we tried to work with them, it was just philosophy about education. And we wanted to go to, okay, so how do we do this? It was really impossible. So what we did is all 5 engineers, we just went around the world looking, who knows how to do this? And which is when we met the CDIO project. Now, the funny thing about having a group of engineers led by themselves is that we're pretty much different animals. Although we're all engineers, we really have different backgrounds. We have different ways of seeing things, which is good in a way because each one brings something into the discussion, but also it makes it sometimes harder. But it's just part of the that was us many times. But actually, all of us became very good friends. We go out together sometimes, have a drink. So, how would you call this attempt? It is very much driving yourself against a ship. The question of why change, first, basically the same reasons why you decided to change, so I'm not going to go into that. When we did all this research study, we talked to the industry, and basically their opinion and our opinion was exactly the same. But I want to add some extras, which has to do with our individual situation. We received, our first-year students are not the best students. We have a little educational crisis in our country, so public schools are not doing very good. And since we're the 3rd university in Concepcion, we don't get the top students because we're just not that well known, even though we believe we have some of the best programs. So basically, we receive a lot of very unprepared students, and that is a fact, and it kind of, pushes us to change even faster. Another fact is that we have too many courses per semester, or we had. It's like 7 to 8 courses. And it's a 6-year program, but also I put too many topics or contents. I'm thinking, I'm not talking about learning outcomes. I'm talking about topics, what you see in the textbook. And you would think if you have 6 years to do the same thing that others do in 4 years, why do you have so much? So the only explanation is the theory of the purse, which I hope will appear. And I'm sure that women here will understand, or those who have wives or girlfriends, that the bigger the purse, the more stuff you put in it. And if you just keep on putting more stuff, it's harder to take things out. So this has been going on for so many years that actually not only our programs, all the programs in Chile are just stuck with lots of courses and a lot of content. So we want to make these Einsteins that know it all, but really don't know how to do much. So that's been one of our challenges. The other thing is we had to do this change. I use the word here, incent. I hope it's well written. We had 2 basic incentives. One is that the government has decided to promote competency-based curriculums in higher education. And this is something that's desired by the accreditation boards in Chile. And our university decided that it had to happen, so they kind of gave us a deadline. The problem is that the people that decided this don't necessarily know what they're talking about. So the times or the deadlines we have to do this is just ridiculous. And we have to do it in that time. The good thing about it is that since it's not only my university that's urging us to do this, but it's also a government thing, is that there are funds to do this. So that's part of the incentive. Inside, it's just like, do it. But coming from the government, we get money to finance all of this curriculum change and design. But they give us little time to do it. Other fact, which is really interesting, is that at least in our country, we have a lot of engineering schools. Higher education is a very profitable business. Everybody wants to go to college. So when I went to school, which was a few years ago, very young, you can tell, Actually, you could only, in my city, you could only study engineering in the Universidad de Concepción. But now there are like 6 universities that have engineering programs, and I'm sure it's going to be 7, 8 next year. So there's a big, big competitive market, and the problem is that these engineers aren't necessarily the ones that we need. I mean, there are a lot of paper engineers, just diplomas being handed out. So that's a big challenge for us because we want our students to really make a difference. So that's also a big urge to change. And we strongly believe that we can do it. I think we can make a difference. We're already on our way. The process, the first thing we learned, there's this expression in Spanish that says, en casa de herrero, cuchillo de palo, would be in the house of the steel worker, they use wooden spoons. So although we are engineers, normally we don't work as engineer when we approach a problem. So the first learning the first thing we learned is that when you change your curriculum, it is indeed an engineering process. So you have C, D, I, and O. The conceiving part took over 2 years. And then the last part of the conceiving part, we got to know CDIO, so that made us fast go to the design part, or else we would have gotten kind of stuck here. And what we've done is we have those 2 parts covered. And just this year in March, if this thing works, we started with the implementation. And actually, the design process continues because we don't have all our courses designed, but the main curriculum design process, I'd say it's pretty much over in all 5 programs. This is a slide you must have seen from Doris if you've been to one of our workshops. I made a much simpler slide to explain our process. This would be part of our conceiving part of it, which is what we did to prepare ourselves, this main working team. And then what we did was we validated our learning outcomes. And not only that, but we also defined what we call the profile of our engineers. Not only the learning outcomes, but kind of say this is where we're going to focus each one of the programs. We benchmarked, we restructured, and we changed the sequence of the course structure. You saw it was a big problem. I'm going to stop a little bit on that. We mapped the skills, and we later designed the course syllabi. And of course, this is an ongoing process that never really stops. So I'm just going to go quickly. It stops at, oh my God. In terms of validation, what we did is we took there were 2 universities that prior to us took the CDIO syllabus, and they validated it. So we took that list and we went on and validated it with our local stakeholders. So that has had actually a double validation in Chile. We did this through survey, focus groups, personal interviews to industry, faculty, alumni, et cetera, et cetera. Some results, I'm just not going to stop over them. The interesting part is that it's not very different than what happened in other universities that validated the learning outcomes. I think the interesting part is that always faculty are kind of have higher expectations. So we're kind of like the parent with the child. We are a little bit strict with them. Benchmarking, which is the next part. What did we benchmark? We actually just benchmarked the learning outcomes through the courses. So first we benchmarked the CDIO, what we call the CDIO learning outcomes, which would be 2, 3, and 4, to see if we were actually dealing with these learning outcomes in our curriculum. You may know the answer, it's kind of obvious. But also we had to benchmark our specific learning outcomes. I mean, we had this, remember, 7, 8 course, a lot of concepts. We had to kind of cut out the fat. So this benchmarking proved to be very, very useful to do this process. And of course, the methodologies. And what we did was basically we designed an Excel spreadsheet which made it much simpler for all faculty to benchmark their own courses, but it also made it simple for us to process the data. So we were able to create these outcomes, which were very visible, and actually see what was going on with our curriculum or with our grids. We also did a workshop to explain to the faculty how they were supposed to fill out these forms, and we processed the data. This is an example. For example, when we benchmarked the specific skills. For example, this is a course, chemistry, and these are the contents, no learning outcomes, because there are no learning outcomes in the old program. And we would ask them, okay, you definitely teach these subjects, but do you teach them theoretically, practically, or applied? And then we would ask them, okay, now what do you need your student to know prior to this specific subject? So, and do you need them in a theoretical approach, practical, or applied? So what they did is that, for example, if I'm the chemistry teacher, I would check this, and then I would look up in other courses to see where it was. And if it wasn't anywhere, I would put down, it's nobody's teaching it. So this was really good because it let us realize that some subjects are not required by any course. And others are, you teach them something after they actually need it. So this was very, very good and very useful. Same thing for the CDIO skills. We did it to the 3rd level, but here we wrote down the 4th level just to give them an idea what it meant. And we would ask them, do you introduce this, use it, teach it, or use it? When you map out, this is not the output, this is from a workshop. When you map out the learning outcomes, it's really useful because this is like the grid, each square is a course. You can really see in what courses you're addressing certain learning outcomes. But the also interesting thing is that U means utilizar, use. There are a lot of these, for example, 3.2, I don't know what, maybe it's teamwork, that says, I use it, and a lot of courses use it. And when you look back, okay, but who's teaching it? So this was very, very useful to see what we were doing now and to create awareness, because when we went and designed the curriculum and we went back with the same faculty members, we wanted them to be aware that, you have to deal with this. You have to take responsibility. You can't just think that the other faculty is going to do it in their course. So this was quite useful. Of course, the outcome from the Excel sheet was much prettier. 1 minute, nothing? Okay. This is the course structure and sequence. Too many courses. We ended up with something like this. I'm just going to, it still looks huge, but we went from 8 to 5. We mapped out learning outcomes. Basically, we did the same thing, but we just mapped it out in the new curriculum. So now we took the list, and we were addressing every single learning outcome that we had decided we were going to put in this program. So they were all considered. And when you have the whole thing in front of you, you realize, okay, but nobody's really dealing with this. Okay, who can do it? And you start negotiating. But you have to have in the group, this is done through negotiation. We just used paper, Post-its. You have to have the faculty inside so that they can commit later to doing this. For syllabi, to get started, I say switch change. I mean, you really have to believe in this. It's like Columbus, you have to see the world round, and you don't have to see it flat. And the other thing is I say you have to know how, but know how to do it. And it's not enough to get your roadmap, plan your steps. It's not enough to just read the book. It's good to ask for help. We had the help of Doris Brodeur. She was at UCSC. She developed several workshops, and that was just so, so useful. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to do this if she hadn't been there working with us. So that's when the network is so important. So those haven't started. I mean, anyone that already has done this would be really helpful to help you kind of visualize what you have to do. Well, commitment. Well, we did a lot of things to get ready. Some final reflections. How many programs should you start? I'm not going to stop on that. We did 5 programs, so maybe, I think it depends a lot on what your situation is. We were forced to do it, so it sounds better to just do 1 at a time, but make sure you know how to do it. Don't reinvent the wheel. A lot of people have tried things. Don't try again. That's what the network is for. It is an engineering process. Keep it simple, and I want to go back to, there's a lot of tools when you have engineers, especially when you have industrial engineers or when you have computer science, they want to have a system for everything. It's like, let's press the button, wow, here's the mapping. And it's really useful, but it doesn't work that way. I mean, nothing beats the good old-fashioned, let's sit together, let's talk about it, let's negotiate. That has to be done. You can't just rely on the results from a spreadsheet. And this is my final slide. At the beginning, I was telling you who we are. Okay, I'm just gonna put it.
There will be a chance to talk to Solange by using the yellow tickets for your table during the lunch break. And please write down any question that you did not have the chance to write here, or any other
Thank you very much.